Mr. Speaker, and still I rise to announce that last night I called for the impeachment of Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America, for threatening judges and for calling for the execution of members of Congress. If ever there was a person who ought to be impeached, it's Donald John Trump. Now, there are many people who don't want to see this happen. They don't want to vote for impeachment. Well, there were people who didn't want to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but they marched on. I shall march on. I've been told that this vote will take place sometime after 1:30 today. I assure you I'll be here for that vote. I will also speak on Friday for about 1 hour after about 11 o'clock. I will explain more about it at that time. This president is a reckless, ruthless, lawless person who doesn't deserve the title of...
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing great. Today we're diving into another major Democratic drama that's making headlines and sparking intense debate.
In December 2025, a surprising procedural move in the House of Representatives drew national attention when Congressman Al Green introduced a privileged resolution to bring an impeachment vote on former President Donald Trump directly to the House floor. Under House rules, certain resolutions, including those related to impeachment, are considered privileged and can bypass normal leadership control. This allows any member to trigger a vote within a set timeframe, ensuring that impeachment proceedings cannot be indefinitely delayed by the Speaker or House leadership. The rule exists to ensure Congress can act on impeachment if the situation requires it, regardless of leadership strategy or timing considerations. What made the December vote particularly notable was the unexpected nature of the maneuver. Democratic leadership had not coordinated or planned for this vote, and many members, along with the press and political analysts, were caught off guard. Leadership largely chose to vote present, a procedural choice that allows members to abstain without formally voting for or against the resolution. This approach allowed Democratic leaders to avoid taking a public stance on impeachment while maintaining flexibility from messaging ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Voting present allowed leadership to signal neutrality on this specific procedural vote while continuing to focus on other legislative priorities, such as economic issues, healthcare, and education, topics they viewed as more central to winning back a House majority. Despite leadership's strategic abstention, 140 rank-and-file members voted in favor of advancing the resolution. Although the vote ultimately failed under the Republican-controlled House, it provided the first public indication of the number of Democratic members willing to support impeachment. This vote demonstrated that a significant portion of the party was ready to act on impeachment if the political circumstances allowed, setting a baseline for future action once the 2026 midterm elections are completed. The resolutions themselves, filed throughout 2025, were detailed and comprehensive. H.Res. 353, introduced in April 2025, contained 7 articles of impeachment addressing issues such as alleged obstruction of justice, interference with congressional authority, abuse of presidential powers, conflicts of interest, and other actions seen as exceeding constitutional limits. H.Res. 537, filed in June 2025, focused on specific incidents and patterns of conduct, while H.Res. 939, introduced in December 2025, included allegations related to abuse of power and conduct affecting public officials. Each resolution provided a legal and procedural framework for potential impeachment should Democrats gain the House majority needed to bring the matter to a full vote. Following the December vote, former President Trump reportedly met with House Republicans to discuss the implications of losing control of the chamber. According to reports, he warned that a Democratic majority could increase the likelihood of a third impeachment. This illustrates the political dimension of the vote. While impeachment does not automatically remove a president from office, that requires a separate Senate trial and a two-thirds majority for conviction, the House vote itself carries substantial political weight and sets in motion formal procedures that can dominate public discourse and media coverage. The procedural significance of the December vote should not be understated. Normally, the House Speaker and leadership control which legislation and resolutions reach the floor, allowing them to manage timing, strategy, and messaging. By using the privileged resolution process, Al Green effectively bypassed this control and forced a vote. The strategy behind filing a privileged impeachment resolution is well established. It ensures that Congress can consider impeachment even if leadership is reluctant to act immediately. Green has introduced multiple resolutions during Trump's second term, and his December maneuver was the most high-profile example of using House rules to compel a vote on impeachment. While the vote did not pass, the result is still politically and strategically important. The fact that 140 members voted in favor under a Republican-controlled House and in the absence of leadership support signals that there is significant support for impeachment among House Democrats. This number provides a benchmark for future action and demonstrates that a Democratic majority would have sufficient votes to move forward with impeachment proceedings if political circumstances permit. Even if the Senate trial ultimately does not result in removal, which requires a two-thirds majority, the impeachment vote itself has considerable symbolic and political impact. It shapes public perception, affects historical legacy, and can constrain the political and legislative options of the president in office. The December vote also highlights the interaction between House rules, individual member authority, and party strategy. Leadership may seek to control timing and messaging to minimize political risks, particularly in the run-up to midterm elections. However, the House rules ensure that individual members can act independently, creating opportunities for procedural surprises and revealing the depth of support for a given issue. In this case, the vote made clear that a substantial portion of House Democrats were willing to support impeachment, even in the absence of coordinated leadership strategy. This information provides both a political signal and a procedural foundation for future action following the 2026 midterms. Looking forward, the outcome of the 2026 midterm elections will determine the path of these impeachment resolutions. If Republicans retain control of the House, the resolutions are likely to remain on file and no further action will occur. If Democrats secure a narrow majority, the House could bring the resolutions to a full vote, potentially triggering committee hearings, evidence presentations, and formal impeachment proceedings. While actual removal from office would still require a Senate trial with a two-thirds majority for conviction, a threshold unlikely to be met in the current political landscape, impeachment itself carries weight. It represents a formal congressional judgment that certain conduct warrants scrutiny and accountability, even if the ultimate constitutional outcome is symbolic. The resolutions themselves are comprehensive. H.Res. 353, for example, includes articles addressing alleged obstruction of justice, efforts to interfere with congressional authority, abuse of trade and executive powers, conflicts of interest, and conduct affecting public officials. H.Res. 537 and H.Res. 939 focus on specific incidents, ongoing patterns, and recent actions taken by the former president that raised constitutional concerns. The existence of multiple pre-filed resolutions means that the House is prepared to act quickly if a majority is obtained, underscoring the procedural readiness for impeachment proceedings. The December vote also provides insight into the political calculus surrounding impeachment. Leadership chose to vote present to avoid taking a public stance while controlling messaging for the midterms. Rank-and-file members, however, voted affirmatively, signaling their willingness to hold the former president accountable regardless of leadership strategy. This distinction between leadership strategy and rank-and-file action underscores how internal party dynamics can influence political outcomes and demonstrates the importance of individual member decisions in shaping congressional action. In summary, the December 2025 vote was significant not because it immediately removed a former president from office, but because it revealed the level of support for impeachment within the House and demonstrated the procedural mechanisms available to members. The vote sets the stage for potential action following the 2026 midterms, showing that the groundwork for impeachment resolutions is already in place and that a shift in House control could determine whether the matter moves forward. It highlights the importance of elections in determining congressional power, the strategic considerations of leadership, and the constitutional tools available to Congress to hold a president accountable. Regardless of the outcome of the 2026 midterms, the vote also serves as a reminder of the balance between procedural rules and political strategy in the House of Representatives. It illustrates how individual members can act independently, how leadership manages messaging and timing, and how these factors interact to shape legislative and constitutional processes. The December vote provides a concrete benchmark of support for impeachment and a clear view of how congressional procedures function in practice, offering insight into both the political and procedural landscape in the United States.